All right, so one of the things that I wanted to talk about well, two of the things anyway that I wanted to talk about that I read in 2022 were, so you guys know I'm a massive Attack on Titan fan. Like, it's one of my favorite series of anything ever. And, I love to consume, like, a lot of the content that is available. And, I'm just, like, itching for more of it. And so basically, so in 2022, I read some of the extra materials for that exist in the Attack on Titan world, and I believe are supposed to be canon, but are not actually written by Hajime Isayama, even though they do have some of his input, I think, which are, first of all, Attack on Titan Before the Fall, and also Harsh Mistress of the City, which are basically, two extra materials that take place in different time periods that I'm going to talk about, and just, give my thoughts on them. Are they worth reading and stuff? So, for those of you who don't know, I'm going to be talking about Before the Fall first, which, Before the Fall is a prequel manga that starts 70 years before the main story of Attack on Titan begins. And, so not a ton of people really know about it because it's more of a niche property out there. Obviously, it was never adapted into anime form, but I thought it sounded kind of interesting, and I heard it got good reviews, so I checked it out. And so what did I think about this manga? So basically, the story of it is that there is, by the way, I'm not going to be talking too detailed about these and what happens in them, but I'm not going to be holding back on spoilers either, so just be warned. But anyway, so this main story is basically that this character called Kuklo, who is the protagonist, was born from a pregnant woman who was vomited up by a Titan, and this Titan actually managed to find itself inside of Shiganshina before, Marley came to break it down 70 years later. And, what I will say, one of the things that I really do like about this manga is that even though it wasn't written by the original creator, and it was obviously illustrated, written by a different person. I don't remember what his name is, but so even though isn't technically by the original creator, it very much feels like it exists in the same world. Like this story, Before the Fall, definitely feels like it does take place in the past of the Attack on Titan world. And, it expands on a lot of really cool aspects of the lore that are not really given much or any focus in the main series. So I think that's really cool. Like, there were a lot of things introduced in Before the Fall that I thought was, really interesting. Like, for example, it goes into a lot of the politics in the Attack on Titan world, and we get to see, like, a bunch of new locations, like the industrial city, for example, and we also get to see, like, this little uprising that happens, that takes place against the king, which was a really cool thing to see, because obviously in the main series, we do have the actual uprising arc where, the sort of Fraud King is deposed and replaced with Astoria. But, in this one, we get to see sort of a little snippet of that happened in the past, where there was, like, all this, anger against the government because of, obviously a lot of corrupt practices, and we could see this little mini uprising that was put down by the military police, and it was, pretty cool to see. I like seeing stuff like that because it makes the world feel very real and very fleshed out in that way. And, we also get to learn about these, like, cultists who worship the Titans, and that was also a really cool thing that part of the lore that was introduced in this manga. So, most importantly, I think about the Before the Fall manga is we get to see the early days of the Survey Corps and, all the struggles that they went through, and it really goes in depth into a lot of stuff about, how they were formed and, how they fit into the political role of the the world civilization. And, like, it also goes into, like, really, like, a lot of detail about how the ODM gear was created, which, is some, like, that is one thing that I think the original series sort of missed out on, where we get this, we get introduced to the ODM gear, which is the gear that, the characters use to fight the Titans in the main series, but, like, it's never really explained very much how it works, and, like, there are those, like, info cards, but I don't know, I don't really stop to read those. I just wish they could have explained it more in the actual show. But, like, in this prequel manga, it's really cool to see, like, all the different little ways in which, this sort of gear was first developed and how it evolved over time, and the ways in which these mechanics tried to get around the issues that they ran into with its design and stuff. And it was really cool. I really liked it. So yeah, that's something I really like. So, however, so I really do like that aspect of it, and the world building, which I think is the best part of the Before the Fall manga. However, although there are a lot of great aspects about this manga, I don't think it's nearly as good as the Attack on Titan main series, and here's why. So, especially comparing the two side by side, like with like directly to say Attack on Titan's first 3 seasons or so, and the no, sorry, the first 2 seasons of Attack on Titan, and all the manga chapters that are in Before the Fall, which is about 54, I think, which is about the same, which is a little bit more than the manga material that the seasons 1 and 2 cover of Attack on Titan. So comparing the two, like, Attack on Titan moves like way faster. It has way faster pacing than Before the Fall did, because there's like always so much going on and so much development in the story and the status quo and like the world and learning all these different things. Whereas Before the Fall is much slower paced, and obviously it's a prequel, which means you can't get into the more interesting story beats that are introduced in the main series. Like, the catalyst of everything that happens in the story of Attack on Titan is basically the wall coming down, and obviously that that can't happen like 70 years in the past. Like, we do see, it is sort of interesting that we do see like this moment where it wasn't because of the walls like breaking or anything. It was because like these Titan cultists like let in a Titan from outside by opening the gates, but that's just in the first chapter of the manga, and we never see anything like that again. And there are really only I think there are only 4, correct me if I'm wrong, there are only 4 instances where the characters actually go outside of the walls and face Titans in in the Before the Fall manga. And like, I don't know, it's just like I don't know, it's just not as exciting and as gripping as the Attack on Titan main series is. Because, like, there are times where Before the Fall can be really cool. Like, especially with the earlier chapters, I think Before the Fall is, like, pretty good in a lot of ways. Because, like, where you see Kuklo and the Survey... See, like, for example, you see... in the earlier chapters, you see where Kuklo and the Survey Corps, like, try to fight against the Titans, the first time we see him go outside the walls, and like they're trying to fight the Titans, but they don't have like anywhere near the experience and technology that they do, obviously, in the current main series, where, and it's just really interesting to see that kind of thing, and it's really exciting and tension-filled. But, I mean, and, it's really scary, and all the other times they meet the Titans, like, for example, when Kuklo and not Charlet, what's his name? Jeez, I can't remember his name, but that other guy, who's part of the main cast, but they go outside the walls when they get like basically shoved out there after they were imprisoned, and it's all just very scary and tension filled, because obviously these characters, like, at this point in the timeline, like they barely even know anything about how to actually kill Titans in the first place, and they're just like struggling to do a single thing against them, whereas obviously in the present day the Survey Corps are much more trained and hardened killers. But and like, but here's the problem with the Before the Fall manga. Like, a lot of this manga is just spent inside of the walls with like not a whole lot of tension. And I'm not saying that the characters constantly have to like fight Titans outside the wall for the story to be interesting. Like, for example, I actually really liked one arc from the Attack on Titan series that a lot of people were not the hugest fans of, but I actually loved, was the Uprising arc from the AOT manga. And like, in my opinion, it was a real shame that the anime made so many cuts to the Uprising arc, when it was adapted. And like, I really love the Uprising arc because, it just has all this, political intrigue and these interesting developments and this slow building of, tension and trying to figure out what's going on. But like, and so basically what I'm saying is, like, I don't need to have the characters constantly fighting Titans all the time. I really don't. But like, the issue is that, like, in the first half of the manga Before the Fall, like, I feel like it handles the story much better than the second half, because so the story in the first half of the manga, the story does a pretty good job of still keeping up suspense and still keeping up intrigue and tension while they're inside the walls, with because of the fact that Kuklo, Charlet, and Cardina, that's the name of the other guy. I have it in my notes. I using my notes for but yeah, Cardina is the other guy that Kuklo meets and sort of joins the main cast. But anyway, so what I was talking about before was Kuklo and Cardina and Charlet basically have to those are three main characters, I guess. So they basically have to go on the run from the military police, and like so basically for the first half of the Before the Fall manga, like there's just a lot of like tension and sort of there's just a lot of tension and sort of it really keeps the story makes it feel like it's very fresh and very continuous, because like there's constantly this tension of the characters like have to constantly be on the move and be in hiding because people in the military police want to catch them and stuff. So that definitely makes it interesting. And of course at the end of the first half of the manga, there's this whole mini uprising that I alluded to before, where that happens in the industrial city, and that's great, and I really like to see it. However, like I was saying before, the second half of this manga is just not nearly as interesting as the first half, because like over half of the second sounds weird to say, but over half of the second half of the manga, basically like maybe 14 chapters or so, are just one big training arc, basically. So I mean, like with the Survey Corps with the Survey Corps recruits trying to use the ODM gear. And like basically, because basically what happens is, that the Survey Corps is trying to, basically they're being threatened with being disbanded because of the failure of their last mission outside the walls. So they basically have to, it's sort of like what happened in the main series. They sort of have to prove their usefulness and that they actually can take down the Titan. So they have to train all these new recruits to handle the new ODM gear design that has been developed. And here's the thing, like it's just, this training arc really just drags and it really gets boring after a while, because and here's the thing, in my opinion, like they didn't spend nearly enough time for the training arc in the Attack on Titan main series, because like I was saying before, the Attack on Titan main series is paced very quickly and things go very fast, and in my opinion sometimes too fast, because in the first at the beginning of season 1 in Attack on Titan, like we spend like maybe 1.5 episodes with the cadets actually training to eventually join the Survey Corps and training for the military. And I feel like we should have gotten more development for that and more time spent on that. But in regards to Before the Fall, I feel like we spend just too much time. Like it sort of has the opposite problem of that Attack on Titan does, where Attack on Titan sometimes breezes through things too fast. Before the Fall is just much more slow paced, and I think it really drags out in this training arc. In the second half of the manga, and like it gets boring after a while because there's no tension. Like other than the fact that yes, sort of they are on a time crunch technically, but like it's just like the characters, for example, Gloria and Zavi, who were basically they were previously antagonistic forces to the main characters, and were trying to like search for them, and so there was like this tension from that. But then like by this point in the story, they just like stop opposing the protagonist, and Gloria is just like, oh, I'm not gonna like arrest you guys, and Zavi is just like, oh, well, I'm gonna respect your wishes, Charlet, for now, and like stop trying to kill Kuklo and anything. And it's just like it's much less interesting because there's just like no tension. It's just a training arc, and it's just like it really drags because it goes on for so long and so many chapters, and it's just like, my gosh, it just really got boring for me after a while. And I feel like there's like, I don't know, and it annoys me too, because this Before the Fall, obviously it has ended. It went for, like I said before, I think about 54 chapters long, or was it 55? But yeah, and I just feel like there's more that could have been done with this series. Like, for example, expanding more on the dissatisfied populace who, expanding more on that, little uprising that happened before, where you have this dissatisfied populace who had a failed rebellion against the king. And like, we should have maybe spent more time and focus on that and the aftermath of that, and like all the things that sort of came of it. But we really don't. And like, and there's just a lot of more I get that we can't have like the same amount of tension and the same amount of conflict as we can in the main series, because obviously the events of the main series haven't happened yet. But we still could have gotten more into some cool stuff that didn't really pan out. Like, so I'll give you an example. So during this training arc, there is this during the training arc where the cadets are trying to master the ODM gear, there is this actually there's this multi-chapter mystery built up about like someone who sabotaged the ODM gear and like basically caused training accidents to happen. And like when I first started reading this, I was like, okay, well, finally something interesting is kind of happening again. We're getting conflict and tension and mystery. And then like it seems like it, this whole thing might actually go somewhere, and we might actually have some real conflict. Like for example, one really cool character in the series that was introduced that I really think could have been utilized much more is Zavi. He's Charlotte's brother, and he has this like butler guy or this assistant who's like this really badass and cool fighter who there's all this mystery behind him, and I feel like we could have gotten like some really cool stuff with him and going more into him and like having him actually do more stuff, but we really don't. And then it's revealed that it was just the person sabotaging the ODM gear. It was really just some asshole trainees the entire time. And it's just like reading this for the first time, I was just like, what? Are you serious? Like that's the payoff to this whole like multi-chapter mystery you set up? Like really? Like come on, man. I mean, seriously, like it's such a fucking letdown, and it's just like it's so lame because it's like, oh, we've gone from like this uprising against the government and like going outside the walls and fighting titans to trying to figure out like what bullies are trying to be mean and like sabotage other people's training. It's just so uninteresting, and it's like there's no tension, and it's just like it really bothers me because like these later chapters really do get really boring in a lot of ways, in my opinion, and it's just like it's very bothersome. And basically so for the last after the training arc of the series finally gets done, for the last about 4 chapters of the series, I think, there is finally some legitimate tension again, where, the characters go outside the wall again in the, basically, in the ending of the, Before the Fall series ends up, starts wrapping up, where the ending, that happens in the series, the final arc, I guess, is where they finally go outside the walls to try out the ODM gear on the Titans and try to see if they can take some down. And so, and there is legitimate tension again. But, I mean, I feel like the final, Survey Corps mission in this manga, like, I don't know, it doesn't really amount to, I don't know, there just wasn't that, I don't know, it just feels like a lot of the tension that was set up in it didn't really amount to a ton because, like, there's all this build up, and there's actually this really great scene that happened before where all the trainees like kind of go on top of the wall and like see the ferocious titans that they're supposed to fight, and they're like obviously shitting their pants and stuff because of how terrifying it looks. But like then like in the end, like all of the trainees survive somehow despite only training with ODM gear for 2 months. Like, and it's just like, really? Like they all survive? Like none of the trainees that prepared to fight the titans with the ODM gear actually died? I mean, like, it sounds messed up, but I was honestly kind of disappointed that like none of the characters actually died because like because remember because Attack on Titan is a series that like there was so much like tension because the antagonistic threat, the Titans, felt so incredibly powerful and felt so like it was so incredibly difficult for the characters to kill them. And like, I mean, remember what happened to Eren and Co. after, like, 3 years of training? Like, they trained with the ODM gear for 3 years, and then the first time they tried to fight Titans, like, literally all of them got eaten, and they couldn't kill a single one. And now it's just like, but these trainees who have gotten much less experience using the ODM gear, and, don't have any experience, like, with fighting the Titans, they just are able to succeed, and, like, literally only one guy gets his leg chopped off, and that's the worst thing that happened, and it's just, like, it feels like really big disappointment that there weren't actually more deaths, and I think that like that's really a problem with this that's really a problem with this series that I have, which is that it doesn't have that same tension, it doesn't have that same feeling of stakes that the main series Attack on Titan does, and that's really one of my biggest issues with it. And like the ending, I don't know, it's just too much of a happy ending for me because like Zavi Charlotte's brother, like, finally tries to actually kill Kuklo again, which, finally some actual conflict happened between them again. But then in the end, he just decides to let Kuklo live in the end, and then, let his sister be free, and it's just like, I don't know, it's just like, these conflicts aren't really being resolved in satisfying ways, because they're just sort of let go in the end, and I mean, like, I don't know, it's just like, it's very disappointing for me, and I feel like, again, especially in the latter half of Before the Fall, like, a lot of the conflicts sort of just peter out and don't really have the same stakes that I feel like they should, and it's just like, it's very bothersome, and, I mean, it's like, the series does, Before the Fall can be very violent, but, like, it's missing the same teeth and the level of tension that Attack on Titan has, where, like, in the main series Attack on Titan, it just feels like the characters are always constantly in dire straits, and it just never really feels that way, outside of a few times in Before the Fall. And so that is really one of my biggest issues with it. But talking about some other stuff in the manga, I guess I should talk about the characters in Before the Fall. So Kuklo, who is the protagonist, he's like an okay protagonist. I mean, Kuklo is basically Eren, except he's more of a... I shouldn't say that. I shouldn't say Kuklo is Eren. Like, he's not a carbon copy of Eren, for sure. I mean, like, Kuklo is definitely more of a traditionally positive shonen protagonist. Like, because Kuklo is this much more happy-go-lucky guy who has a much more positive outlook on life. And he's sort of like, he has all the he has a lot of the traits of a traditional shonen protagonist. Like, he loves to eat a lot. He's, like, super energetic, and he, like, he fights to protect his friends and stuff. Like, where, on the other hand, like, I mean, it really is interesting, too, like, contrasting Kuklo with Eren, because, like, in the Before the Fall manga, Kuklo is basically talking about how, he doesn't want to, like, destroy the Titans because he hates them. He just wants to, destroy them because he doesn't want them to ever endanger people, and, like, he wants to protect people. Whereas, like, in the main series, Attack on Titan, Eren is, like, going after the Titans for revenge and saying, I want to kill them all, and, like, Eren's a fucking sociopath, man. But, like, Kuklo is definitely much less messed up, even though, like, obviously you'd expect him to be maybe more messed up than Eren, because he was literally born from inside a Titan's mouth and was, like, carted around as, like, this, circus attraction because of, everyone calling him a freak and stuff, which, I mean, yeah, it is definitely a difference, and I think Kuklo, even though he's not, like, super complex or anything, he is a likable protagonist, and, I liked him fine. He's good. Anyway, moving on from there, Charlet, who is the sort of, deuteragonist, am I saying that right? Is that the right word? But whatever, she's basically the female protagonist, the main female protagonist, and, Charlet is fine. I mean, there's nothing about her that really annoys me, but I just wish she had more to do, and felt like she was a more active participant in the story and drama, which, like, I mean, I don't know, because it feels like just Charlet is not really given an active role a lot of the time. Like, yeah, she does have her moments, and, like, the story was sort of building up drama for her, because obviously she does have, like, motivations, and she does have things that she struggles with. Like, for example, the main thing with her is basically that she wants to break away from her family life that she had, where she is, obviously this noble woman who, has a lot of these expectations put on her from society and from her family and her brother, and she's, like, sort of trying to get away from all that, and, like, it is interesting, and she does sort of display, like, courage and, like, independence in some moments in the Before the Fall manga, but, like, I don't know, it's just, like, it didn't feel like there was really much payoff for that with her arc of trying to break free from her family and the expectations of society, because, like I said before, what happens is, in the end, her brother Zavi basically just, like, gives up in the end and sort of stops, like, counting on her and trying to get her back, and it's just, like, I don't know, it's just, like, it didn't really amount to much in the end. I just don't, like, I don't know, I just feel like Charlet should have, been given more to do and more meat to her story, and I just don't feel like that was there, which, again, I don't hate her character, I don't really dislike her, but, she's fine, but just not as interesting as she could be, in my opinion. I will say, though, Charlet x Kuklo is legitimately a pretty wholesome ship, which, I can definitely get behind. Like, they are very cute together, and, it's obvious that both of them have a lot of feelings towards each other. And, like, the thing is, I feel like Kuklo x Charlet is the ship that Eri Mika fans are actually describing when they, like, start gushing about Eri Mika, because Charlet x Kuklo is, like, an actually really wholesome and, not one-sided and, cute ship, whereas, I've ranted about Eri Mika in the past, and this is, like, which, I mean, like, I'm well on the record as not liking Eri Mika. I mean, I feel like it had terrible development, and I mean, for fuck's sake, Mika said decapitated Eren, for crying out loud. And like, again, like, and it's just so strange to me when Eren Mika fans like, oh, gushing about, oh my gosh, Eren Mika is so adorable, it's so great, and it's like, no, it's not. Mika said decapitated Eren. Like, what the fuck? What are you even talking about? I don't know. It's just like and. And it's like, but for me, I feel like reading the Before the Fall manga, I feel like, Charlotte X Kuklo is the ship that, Eren Mika fans are actually describing when they're, like, gushing about, Eren Mika. So that's basically what I think. So yeah, and, Cardina, who is, the, sort of a side mainish character who meets Kuklo, is, like, he's fine as a character. I will say, though, did anyone else get the, impression that Cardina is, like, super fucking gay? Like, right? I mean, like, it's never said explicitly, but like, I can't be the only one who like noticed, that there were some serious gay vibes from his character. Like, I mean, for real. I mean, well, anyway, with how he was talking about like, he was super relieved that he wasn't engaged to Charlotte and stuff like, and a bunch of other stuff, and his mannerisms and stuff like. I don't know. I just thought Cardina was super fucking gay, and that's cool, and he's very flamboyant. Also, I don't know. He's entertaining and fine, and I liked him well enough, but not a ton to him, I guess. Anyway, so overall, my overall thoughts on this manga, like, in regards to the characters, a lot of them are fine and likable enough, but like, let's be honest here, like, the characters aren't nearly as interesting or complex as a lot of the characters are in Attack on Titan, and like, obviously, Before the Fall is shorter than Attack on Titan is, because Attack on Titan goes on for much longer, and quite honestly, a lot of the characters don't start getting really complex and really interesting until, like, the Uprising arc, which happens, which, really gets into gear about, by the same point, in the manga as by this manga, around chapter 55, which was when, this manga, ended, obviously, so I'm not gonna really fault, Before the Fall for being shorter and not really getting into the complexities of the characters. But again, the characters just, like, they aren't as interesting as a lot of the characters in Attack on Titan are. And it just doesn't really have that same complexity and, like, the same, like, holy shit moments that Attack on Titan does. And, like, I mean, so that's basically what I thought about, Before the manga. Yeah, like, I'm glad I read it, but I also didn't think it was fantastic. I think the Attack on Titan main series is fantastic and unbelievably good, and has so much like holy shit moments, like but like, again, I thought Attack on Titan Before the Fall was fine, but it just wasn't amazing or anything. It couldn't hold a candle to the main story of the show, and that's okay. Again, I'm glad I read it, but it's not fantastic. So basically, that's what I thought about the Before the Fall manga. If you want to get a lot of really interesting lore and history about the Attack on Titan world, then you can read it, and it's not bad or anything, but I don't think it's amazing, and I think, again, like I said before, definitely the second half of this manga is much less interesting and not as good as the first half of the manga. So that's basically what I thought of Before the Fall. Getting that out of the way, though, now I'll be talking about Harsh Mistress of the City, which was, I actually thought was significantly better and a more entertaining read than Before the Fall was. I mean, like, it's weird because Harsh Mistress of the City is kind of weird because it's not actually a manga. It's a book that I actually read online, and so it's set in the Attack on Titan universe, but again, it's not a manga, it's just a written book, and like, but again, it is a very interesting story, and so I'll talk about that now. So basically, the deal with Harsh Mistress of the City is it takes place soon after the wall was broken down by the Armored and Colossal Titans, and goes into like all the chaos and the mayhem of the evacuations that like took place when everything was crazy and everyone was trying to flee from the Titans. And like and I really like that because like one of the things I was thinking when I was watching Attack on Titan the series is like they basically breezed through that whole thing of like all the evacuations that happen. Like it happens in like basically half an episode, and you see that and then it just sort of skips straight to the story, which again Attack on Titan does because, like I said before, it's a very fast-paced manga. It doesn't tend to like stick on a bunch of stuff that is not necessarily necessary. Like it basically covers it in a very brief span of time and then moves on with the story. But again, it's really cool to see this, and I really have to give props to the writer of this because they did such a fantastic job of making the story feel incredibly visceral and desperate, like with the descriptions that they give in the book. And like it it had an amazing sense of tension that was really just sometimes missing from Before the Fall, which I mentioned before. And so, yeah, again, like I said before, the story is very interesting because it expands more on the world and like these extra, piece of information. Like for example, one of the things I found really interesting about the story is because what basically happens is the Quinta district on the outside of which is attached to the outside of Wall Maria. Basically, what happened was rather than retreating to Wall Rose, what happened was that the Titans got there too fast, so all the citizens there were actually forced to take shelter in the Quinta district, which made it so that they were completely cut off from Wall Rose. And that's really interesting because it's something that you don't think about what that might happen with the evacuations that took place, but it's also like it feels like it's definitely something that could happen. So yeah, it's just like learning about this thing that happened and what these citizens were forced to do to survive and hang out at this outlier city, and it's really cool and really interesting, and I really like the story and what it did with it. So yeah, basically, so what happens is in the story, basically, the main character-ish, well, one of them anyway, Malthius, he basically has to allies with these really shady criminals to smuggle himself over to Quinta to save the girl that he loves, and who is also the other protagonist of this book. And, it's... however, she basically doesn't want to go. I think her name was Rita, was it? But Rita, basically, she doesn't want to actually leave the city because she is just trying to look after all the citizens there. And, you get the sense of, like, real conflict in the, you get the sense of real conflict in the book, especially after, Malthius does what he does, and, accidentally, he gets himself involved with these shady criminals, and unsurprisingly, that sort of lands him into trouble, and he accidentally shoots this guy who was, a friend of Rita, and, it's just like, this book is really good at building up conflict, and, making a legitimately morally gray, story where, you feel a lot of emotions from the characters and you really feel for, how hard the situation... Because, like, these characters, like, obviously, Rita and Malthius, they're sort of like these normal guys who, living in society before, obviously the wall comes down and everything is, like, going to hell and complete insanity follows. And it's just, like, really interesting seeing these characters adapt to this situation and trying to, like, live through it and, survive and try to protect people that they care about. And it's just, like, again, so, yeah, like I was saying before, this book is just really well written. I really was incredibly engaged reading it. So, like, the two characters, Rita and Malthius, they don't start out as the most complex or interesting characters ever, but like I said before, as the book goes on, they really develop into much more complex actors and in terms of the roles that they are put in, because, like I was saying before, they are forced into incredibly difficult and stressful situations where they have to make really hard decisions, and they're not totally sure, well, at least the audience isn't totally sure, whether they're actually in the right or in the wrong for what they're doing. Because, like, and again, this is what I was saying before that I think was my criticism of Before the Fall, because it didn't really do what the Attack on Titan main series really did, which is, like, putting these characters in incredibly stressful and incredibly intense situations where they're, like, forced to, make these split decisions and really have to think back on their, the choices they made, which is the main theme of the Attack on Titan series, because, like, a main theme of the Attack on Titan series is, what will characters do when they're put in these incredibly dire straits, and, like, that they definitely wouldn't ordinarily do when they were just living life. And that's something that I think this book really captures very well, because, obviously it is set in an incredibly tumultuous time in the history of the World Civilizations, where it's basically, like, I think it's a few months, basically the main story goes on to a few months after the walls were originally kicked down, and I really like it. It's just really good. And, overall, basically, I found this book to be a really good read, and it was just a really great insight into the, horrifying struggles that the residents of the walls had to go through, which was, again, like I said before, breezed through in the main series. But in this series, we really get a personal look at, like, these characters' struggles, and seeing it from multiple different perspectives is really cool, and I really liked it. So, my one issue with the Harsh Mistress of the City book is that, for me, like, the ending didn't really work the best for me. I mean, so basically, what happens in the ending is Rita, who was basically, she was had become the self-appointed leader of the city of Kinta, and it was basically becoming this sort of tyrannical ruler over them, and trying to make sure she had complete authoritarian control, to make sure that like no panics or rebellions were caused, so that she could like keep everyone alive. But what basically happens at the end of the book is she just pretty much immediately decides to give up trying to make Kinta self-sustaining, and like agrees with Malthius and says, "Oh, okay, everyone, we're going to escape and go back to Walled Rose now." And like, I don't know. I mean, it's just I don't know. It's just so, and she does this basically because she realized that the Titans can climb stairs on top of the wall from inside the walls. So basically, Titans come down and start raining down from above the walls of Kinta, and this is what basically convinced her to say, "Okay, this is unsustainable. We need to retreat." And like, I mean, my issue with it is that like it is cool again because like it is sort of interesting because again like it shows that Rita is not like this cartoonishly evil villain or anything, and she was legitimately doing all these horrible authoritarian things because she thought like by maintaining order in this city she was actually going to be able to make it so that everyone was able to survive. But then of course at the end when she realizes that like it's unsustainable, she changes her mind and like has everyone like try to flee to safety instead. So that is like sort of an interesting it makes her character seem more complex, and I do like that she wasn't just like she didn't just evolve into like this just evil for evil's sake person who was just totally stuck in her ways. And like I did like that aspect of it, but my problem is the logistics of like I just feel like it didn't really make a ton of sense, her decision, in terms of, like, trying to keep everyone alive. Because here's the thing. Like, if you're worried about, like, these Titans coming up from the lifts that are available from inside the wall, where the Titans could basically climb them and get on top of the wall, and then from on top of the wall, they could, like, come down into Kinta and start eating people. So, you're concerned about that, right? So, couldn't you just, like, send up scouts, like, over the wall and try to, like, block those stairs or lifts or basically, or put out lookouts there, so to basically warn the city if any Titans, to basically warn the citizens of Kinta if any of the Titans were coming, and like basically try to perturb the Titans' advance from there on. I mean, it just like feels like there's things you could have done to rectify this problem, but Rita and the book never really considers any of them, and it's just like the alternative, which is basically Rita and Malthius trying to get like all these citizens from Kinta to Wall Rose. It would be incredibly difficult and probably result in mass casualties, which is why the residents stayed there in the first place and didn't flee and stayed in the city. So it's just like, I don't know, I just don't really understand it. It doesn't really seem like a decision that makes a ton of sense, logically speaking, and it seems like there would be massive consequences that would not be worth it. So I mean, like, plus the government would eventually, like, send a bunch of the Wall Maria residents out to die anyway. So it's like, they probably would have, honestly, the citizens probably would have had a better shot of making it in Kinta. And, like, I mean, maybe that's the point of the story. Maybe, the ending was supposed to come across as, like, depressing because, like, we know that ultimately that decision was a mistake, and, like, all the residents or, like, a bunch of the residents would be forced out and forced to die outside of the walls in the end. But, like, I don't know, the ending just didn't come across that way, and if that's what they were going for, like, it didn't really, again, it didn't come across that way, and I think it was kind of poorly written in some ways, and the sort of mechanics of Rita making her decision didn't really make the most sense. And so I also wish that the conflict between Rita and Malthius hadn't been resolved so like that in the end, and like that, I don't know, it just feels like there was a lot of obviously a lot of conflict between them that I feel like was sort of resolved a bit too quickly in the end, and we didn't really get any like sort of conclusion to like what their relationship was afterwards, because obviously Malthius had a big crush on Rita, and like there wasn't really any sort of discussion on where they stood afterwards. And I don't know, it's just like the ending was my least favorite part about this about the Harsh Mistress of the City book, and I did feel like it was sort of sloppily handled in a lot of ways, sort of like the ending of the main series, Attack on Titan. But yeah, anyway, so basically in regards to that's what I thought about the Attack on Titan Harsh Mistress of the City. I thought it was a really good book, and I definitely recommend it. I think it was significantly better than the Attack on Titan Before the Fall manga. And so, yeah, I definitely I definitely recommend, like I said before, I recommend, like, Before the Fall is somewhat interesting, and you might enjoy it if you want to see more lore and stuff, but I feel like Attack on Titan, Harsh Mistress of the City is a much better read, and I feel like I was much more attached to it and much more engaged in reading it, so I would probably recommend Harsh Mistress of the City more. So basically, that's what I thought. So yeah, anyway, in the end, that's basically what I thought of Before the Fall and Harsh Mistress of the City. Those were my thoughts. Check them out if you're interested. If you have read them yourself, post comments down below what you thought. And this has been the Aromantic Shipper. Please be sure to like, share, and subscribe. And as always, remember, just because you can't feel love doesn't mean you shouldn't want other people to. Bye.